Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to episode 2 of the Men2Men podcast. I'm Malik Carey.
And I'm Brett Carroll.
What's going on, Brett? How you doing?
I'm good, Malik. How you doing, my brother?
First of all, I would like to just thank all those who liked, shared, listened to our first episode last week as we talked about manhood. We defined what we talked about, the multidimensional man. We discussed our expectations and challenges. And we also talked about overcoming a lot of challenges.
Yeah, and today we kind of want to follow up briefly, quickly with some of those manhood discussion topics that were talked about last week. And then we're going to get into our topic for this week, which is I'm going to ask you the question, and we'll talk a little bit about, as black men, what is our purpose? But first, I want to just hit real quick on a couple comments that were made in reference to last week's episode, our first episode. Had a brother who talked about being raised by a father, and you know how it is with we black men. You know, in many cases, he was raised by a father, and his father raised him to be a tough guy. You know, strong and not to show any emotion and not to have a whole lot of feelings, but to provide, protect, and do those manly things. And I think what was interesting about the feedback here was that when he grew up, when he became a father, he had to learn from his children how to be emotional, how to be sensitive, how to be compassionate, how to meet his children where they were, so that he could be more of a loving, nurturing father. Not that his own father wasn't loving and nurturing, but the way he needed to learn how to love and nurture was very different from the way his father raised him. So I thought that was pretty interesting. We had another brother who talked about something that I think is really profound in the black community, and that's just brokenness, being broken, and coming to a point in life and realizing, hey, I've got to change. And this brother talked about turning his life over to the Lord. He talked about being really committed to reading, biblically based books, books about empowerment, self-empowerment, self-encouragement, and he remained faithful and diligent to the reading and to prayer and to his walk with the Lord. And today, as he writes, he is a minister, and he's ministering to broken people himself.
Wow. Okay.
And so I love hearing these stories.
Yes,
man.
me too.
These stories are really empowering. And there was another brother who shared something I thought was pretty interesting too. He talked about the whole concept of this multidimensional man. Man being, having many dimensions, many sides, many aspects to him. And so we all know that we are complex people. We're not simple. We're complex people. And because of our complexities, it makes life challenging.
Yes,
internally
definitely.
And externally. So I come back to you and I ask you the question. Well, let me back up. What are some of your thoughts or some of your comments regarding some of the feedback that we got last week?
Man, I really like the one about the brother talking about learning how to be sensitive. I had I raised a son, and then, I had a goddaughter come live with me at 16 years old. And, wow, I had to learn, right? I can't just go, flying off the handle. And, when you're raising a boy, you can snatch him up a little bit. And, you come in the house and she's emotional and, you can't just tell her to stop crying, So I had to learn those things myself. So, this was really good. I really appreciate his vulnerability to even be able to share that kind of feedback with us, and definitely understanding about, just really being broken and turning our lives over to God, right? In so many ways. So thanks, guys. We want to thank you guys, anyone who commented on the first episode, and you guys can also go back and watch that first episode on YouTube. And we're ready to get started with episode 2.
Yeah.
We got a hot topic. What is purpose? What is our purpose? Brett, I think that's a really great question. I did the Webster search. I always do that. And I like what the Webster search said. The reason for which something is done or created, or which is something exists, the purpose and meaning, right? And so when I look at that, the purpose, what is the purpose of a black man? And, that's a that was a really great question you proposed, because to me, a purpose of a black man, first of all, is to fight for his family.
Yeah.
Our families have been so torn apart.
Yeah.
To fight for our families. I think that that's the number one thing. The fight to keep the family unit together. The fight to keep the family thriving. Right? We've been surviving so long.
True.
Right? And I think that once we get to a point where we can fight for our families, fight for our children, fight for them, fight for our mothers, who have been left fatherless or husbandless, right? Right. And my hat's off to you. 30 years of marriage. I'm going on my 12th year of marriage, right? We've been doing some fighting, but that's us. But when we look at the purpose of the black man, the brown man, to fight for his family, I think that you want to speak to that, Brett?
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, I think we were created in the first place to be head of household. I mean, that's biblical, and not only that, but it's our rightful place, and I think that the biggest problem, challenge, obstacle, concern, whatever word you want to use, with us as black people in today's society is the weakening. It's either the non-existence or the weakening of the black family. And I think so as a black man, to me, I must first self-identify, self-recognize who I am, what I'm supposed to be about, and what my purpose in life is. And I believe my purpose in life as a black man, and I hope most black men believe this way, is to raise a family. And it's to protect the family, and it is to provide for the family, but it's also to lead the family, to be that role model, to be that example. And the Bible talks about light and salt. I think first and foremost, that is our number one purpose. That is our number one priority. But in order to get there, Malik, you know what the challenge is?
Talk to me.
You got to be right yourself in order to lead.
Come on, brother.
No, I'm just saying. It's the reason why our families are dysfunctional, and the reason why they're not whole, not complete, not together. And there's too many families that aren't together, and the reason for that is that the man himself we ain't where we need to be, and so the biggest purpose, I think, is a very selfish purpose. One of the biggest purposes is a very selfish purpose, and that is get thyself together.
So, I run a counseling center. I see women here. I see other races of men here. But I don't see my brothers here.
Well, look, you're the therapist. You're the counselor. You know the reason for that. The reason is very simple. A, we don't want to recognize that we need help because it violates.
And there's stereotypes.
That's true. But it also violates our self-perception of our own manhood. If I come here and I knock on the door and I say I need help, I'm admitting to myself first, and I'm admitting to society that there's something wrong. And we're too prideful. And I'll use the word prideful. I don't think it's anything worse than that. We're just too prideful as black men to say, help, I need help.
Oh, well, I'm not going to even know. I like the pride part, but some of us have not even been taught to say I need help. Now, I'm going to give us a pass a little bit. The ones that do show up, I love it because their wives is usually dragging them by the ear, right? The wives are ready to walk out the door. They're so frustrated, so pissed.
Well, that's an oxymoron too, because think about it. We're talking about black men being leaders, head of household, but yet it's our women who are taking us and leading us to transition, to change, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And so even though I understand what you're saying, and I agree with you, as a black man, to me, it's very personal that we need to be Superman. And what I mean by Superman, it doesn't mean we're not vulnerable.
We talked about this last week.
It doesn't mean we don't have emotions. It doesn't mean we don't hurt. It doesn't mean we don't cry. But what it does mean is that we have self-identified what our roles are. We have self-identified what our responsibilities are. And first and foremost, it is to provide and protect our families. And that doesn't mean you everybody's got to run out and get married. No, no, no.
No,
You can be single
and still provide and
and still
protect for your
provide.
family.
You have a
Right.
mother, you have sisters, you have
Right.
aunts, you have the women in your household, or you have the women on your street, you have the women in your community that you, as a black man, should rightfully say, it's my job. It's my job to protect you.
So I get on. I got a shout out to my brothers on the 4:30 a.m. Prayer call on Wednesdays. My brothers in the box. We call ourselves the Man Cave. And one of the things we talked about, because we're on, and I got to put a shout out for Dr. Miles Monroe's book, A Man on Purpose, right? And Passion and Purpose. But one of the things we talked about just this morning, was what do you do when you feel like you're on purpose and you're providing, but your wife makes more money for you?
Well, I think you have to be, well, first of all, I would get on my knees and I would say, thank the Lord. Okay. Because I have no problem with a woman making more than me. If she's qualified, if she's done the work, if she's capable, and she's being rewarded for her hard work, for her intellect, for her competence, for her achievements, then thank God for her. God bless her, and thank God that she's with me. All right, so I don't have an issue with that. But I do think it raises a great point, and that is, are we as black men intimidated, feel less than a man because our woman makes more money than us?
And that was one of the things we talked about. It shouldn't.
It shouldn't.
It shouldn't.
But it does. But it does.
And see, the thing that needs to come into that is, hey, babe, we're in a partnership, and understand that even though you make more money, I still lead this home.
Okay.
Right. And that comes down to having the conversations. That comes down to, hey, you make financial, but you know what? I still provide. I'm gonna provide that protection. I'm gonna get out here and do my part.
Right.
Right. And so those are the things that we got to do, and get away from the woman who is running around saying, well, I make more money than you. And that means, no, it's a partnership. And that goes back down to the healthy marriage. That goes back down to the healthy relationship. That goes back down to the ones who are getting healthy together.
Yes.
Right. And so when I'm providing, when I'm protecting, when I'm doing those things for my family, I don't care if you make more money than me or not. I'm still a man of this home.
Right.
Not in a domineering way, but in the way that God created us to be.
Right.
Right. God created us to be in partnership with one another. He created us to be in that. And so when we look at that man on purpose, providing, protecting, overcoming, right? You talked about that. First of all, I got to understand there's some things we definitely got to overcome.
No doubt.
Right.
No doubt.
I know we talk about the systematic oppression. We talk about all of these things that you're going to break down, and we're going to break down on this episode today. But when we talk about the things that we need to overcome, tell me when you think, other than, the emotional side of it, tell me some other things you think we need to overcome, Brett.
Well, the biggest thing I think is being able to understand who we are and who we're supposed to be. And that's not, and so is it an identity crisis? I wouldn't call it an identity crisis, but I would say that we have to be bold, and we have to be strong, and we have to know who we are and why we are, and we have to walk in that. And I think too often, and we talked about this before, too often society, systemically and institutionally, these things are put in place, intentionally designed to make us feel less than a man, to make us feel unworthy, to make us feel that we're not good enough. And I think, and I hope people don't take this the wrong way, but I think this whole concept around our women who do make more than us is a great example of that, because society affords black women more of an opportunity than they do black men. Now, let's talk about why. Well, they're less threatening, number one. Number two, let's keep it real. White men might find our women attractive. And I do believe that there is a reality that says, if we can uh, allow the black woman to be the breadwinner, then at some point, somehow, some way, it's ultimately going to lead to the separation of the marriage. And that's how you break up black families. And that's how you're able to continue to kind of put your foothold and control the black community. Now, I know that's a real stretch, but I do believe there's truth to that. I do believe it because I've seen it happen. It's happened over and over and over again. It's not a coincidence that the black family divorce rate is twice that of white family. It's not a coincidence that uh, single um, uh, single mother, mothers raising their children, single parenthood. It's not coincidence that that's overwhelmingly disproportionate in the black community than it is in any other community. And so I think all those things are uh, residual. I think those things are all symptomatic of the systemic racism, the institutional racism that we deal with. So it goes back to what I said a couple of minutes ago. I think it's critical for us to fight for our rights. I think it's critical for us to fight for our equity as black men. I think it's critical for us to carry the baton.
Mm-hmm.
As a black man, my thing is my father went through what he went through. My grandfather went through what he went through. My great grandfather went through what they went through. They did not go through all of that so that I can drop the ball.
Mm.
So I got to carry the baton. It's like what do you call it? Like a 4x4 relay race, right?
Mm-hmm.
The baton is now in my hand. I'm the third leg. The baton is in my hand. I've got to make up ground, right? I've got to achieve a certain amount, right? So that I can then turn around and pass it on to my son so that he can win the race for our family, for our neighborhood, for our community, for our people. Mm-hmm. Again, it's a lot to unpack, but in a big global kind of a perspective, that's kind of how I see the purpose of black men.
Mm. I like that, Brett. One of the things that we talk about is the impact of the systematic structure, right? Being the victim of the institutional racism, being victims of the slavery and oppression and mentality, and being mentally
oppressed.
And I think that goes back to a lot of what we talked about with the counseling and understanding where we are. We talk about nature and nurture, right? Nature is our DNA, right? And then nurture is the environments we've been raised in. And if all I've seen is lack, all I've seen and been taught is limitation, we can't afford, what do you think, money grows on trees, whatever it's been for us to, we can't do that. They get to do that, right? All of those things, there's been this separatism, right? And in that lack and limitation that we've been systematically been oppressed, even in our own thought, and it's been passed down from generation to generation.
So let me ask you this. That's a great point. So we know that we are the oppressed. We know who the oppressor is, but we also have our own oppressive thoughts. Mm-hmm. So what's the greater enemy? Our own thinking or the impact that society has had on us historically?
I'm going to tell you, for me, I think it's our own thinking today. I think we put too much on society. I think we put too much on what we can do and can't do. As a Christian, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me, right? I can do that. I'm not knocking it, but hey, you see my success. You see, I've been able to come from a place where a lot of people don't make it. I grew up in Newark, New Jersey. I call it what it is, right? And I've rose above a lot, and it was because of my thinking. It was because I got introduced to books, which we don't read. My man talked about, I love with the feedback. He said, I got some books in my hand, right? And I started reading Think and Grow Rich. And I started reading Napoleon Hill's books on 21 Laws of Success. And I started reading these books, and it took my mind away from my oppression, and it took my mind to, I can do this, right? And so there are a lot of ways that we've used systematic racism. This is just for me, that we've blamed the white man too long in some ways. Now, when it comes to our school systems, when it comes to those things, I had a privilege a couple of years ago to go speak at a school in Patterson. When I left that school, my heart was hurting because they had a lunchroom that was a gym. They had holes in the screen that I couldn't even show a projection on. So yeah, there are some systemic things there, but those schools look just like schools I left in 1970.
Let me ask you a question, and don't take this personal.
No, I won't.
So you said you came out of Newark, and you overcame the challenges of what I consider to be. See, I look at the inner city as a business plan.
Okay.
A business plan.
I like that. Okay.
A systemic, institutional business plan by society to keep Black people imprisoned, legally imprisoned, morally, emotionally, psychologically imprisoned. Okay. So you understand what I'm saying when I say that, right? So here's my question to you. So you got out. Now, it's a quick two-part question. The second part, expound. What percentage do you think you represent when you look at all the inner cities throughout this country, the history of Black America in this country? You got out and you rose above and you succeeded. First question, what percentage do you think you represent of Black people?
A very small percent.
Okay. And that's my point. That's my whole point. As Black men, I believe, if not us, then who? At what point do we be comfortable with where we're at, with the success that we've had, with the struggle that we've overcome, or the journey that we've made, I should say, overcoming whatever it is we overcame to get wherever it is we are? At what point are we like, okay, I'm good? But I'm
should never be good.
But I don't care about the other 95% of us.
But see, that's the problem.
Because I can get in the car and drive down the street, and in 5 minutes, I'm looking at homelessness. I'm looking at crack addiction. Well, I don't know if crack still
heroin,
whatever it is now.
Yeah, all of it.
But the point is, I'm looking at 9 out of 10 of my brothers and my sisters in the street, in the cold, some homeless, some hungry, everybody desperate. Everybody desperate. So when we talk about this whole concept of, as a Black man, what is our purpose? Bruh, I'm not comfortable or satisfied or happy being where I'm at, knowing of the multitudes and the masses of our people, as to where, knowing where they're at.
And I love that. And we should never get comfortable. The ones that do, you know what? Shame on them. But for me, there's never a day that I'm comfortable.
Okay.
Right? There's never a day that I don't want more for, not just for myself, for my people.
But here's the thing, Malik. Here's the thing. Okay. You feel that way. But how many of us feel that way? Not enough.
Enough.
Because if enough of us, not all of us, but if enough of us felt that way, we wouldn't have the
levels of poverty, and not just financial poverty, mental poverty, all of it. And that's and man, I love what you just said, right? It we wouldn't have it, but we've had such a
history.
Yeah. Right. But then I want to go somewhere. You give a man you teach a man to fish, you feed him for a lifetime. We hear all of these, you give a man a fish, you feed him for the day. You teach a man to fish, you feed him for a lifetime. We have been, and this is for me, in some ways, we've been given too many fish.
Brother, explain that. Come on now. Come to talk to me. See, I talk to me. Go ahead. Talk to me.
Okay. I've noticed that we want it the easy way. We don't want to work hard. We don't want to work on ourselves. We want to get the money quickly. That's why we got so many drug dealers out here. We want it fast. We want our reparations. We want all of these things. And we don't want to get out here and grind. I did it. You did it. Right? The handout. Yo, bro, can I get some spare change? Right? The hurt, the unemployment, the not unemployment, the welfare, all of these things that we turn to as soon as it gets tough. Right? And so we go to the welfare line instead of going back to school. We go to the sister who's making it so we have something else to fall back on. And so it's a thing where, again, some of it is systemic, right? We don't start businesses. We're going to talk about this, the 60s, the 50s and 60s. And I think we didn't hit on this, and I think I want to talk about this. I talked about the segregation part of it. When we were segregated, when we were in our own communities, we had the stores, we had the cleaners, we were community. When we desegregated, we started going to different places, moving out, right? In the 60s and 50s, you had the Ford Motor Companies, you had these places that were hiring, you had the factory jobs, you had the carpenters, right? Then you put us in school, we started making some money. We moved to the burbs, right? Some of us. Then we left the inner city, and then crack flooded, and the economic downturns that have happened over the last 40 years, and we didn't rebound from it.
Yo, I love you, bro. But you know what? Even though everything you said is what they call facts, what I'm talking about is the root cause of the facts.
Mm-hmm.
And what I'm talking about is what you're talking about is the residual effects or the residual impact of systemic and institutional racism. Everything you just talked about is true.
Mm-hmm.
But what I'm talking about is why that's true. And when you talk about we don't want to work, when you talk about we'd rather sell drugs, when you talk about some of the other things you mentioned, all true. But what I say to you is we've been conditioned.
Mm-hmm.
All of us have been conditioned because we live in that condition. And if that's what you see, if that's what and you know that this is how life is around you, it's been that way, and you're conditioned to live that way, you're going to be that way. And so
that's the nature nurture, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
But you got out, okay? And you represent a very small percentage of people who did get out.
Mm-hmm.
And I give you a lot of credit for that. And I love you for that. And I respect you for that. Admire you for that. But you are 1%, or 10%, 5%. You're a very small percentage of all those brothers and sisters who have been left behind. Now, do we take some do they we take some do we take some responsibility for the situation we're in? Absolutely. But I'm going to give you a real simple analogy. If I'm standing out in the middle of the street and it's raining, I don't control the rain, right?
Mm-mm.
I get wet. Is it my fault? I don't have an umbrella. I don't have shelter. I don't have a place to live. I don't have a job. And I don't have a job. Now follow this real quickly. I don't have a job because I couldn't get an education. And so
I couldn't or I didn't.
Well,
because that's where we differ.
Here's how I couldn't. Let me say this.
Okay.
I went to public school. What kind of education did I get there? None. It was trash for the most part. We're talking about the inner city now. We're talking about 90% of us, okay? We're not talking about the black kids who grew up in the suburbs. We're not talking about the black kids.
I'm talking about the inner city schools.
Inner city schools. Well, education I got was crap. So you're the 10% that got out. The 90% still left behind. So it's not like I didn't want to go to school. It's that I couldn't. You take away funding, so now you can't get into school. So what happens to the 18-year-old who can't go to college? What happened to the 18-year-old who doesn't have access to plumbing training, carpenter training, electricity training? These good paying jobs that are blue collar.
Because the streets tell me I can make more money in the streets than I can becoming a plumber and start my own business.
Okay.
Yeah.
But not only that, but where is the access to these alternatives for Black people in the inner city? They don't know about them. They're not communicated to them. So they don't have access to them.
Mm-hmm.
So now you're 18 and now you're 20, now you're 22 and you're not working and you're not in college. So what do you think is going to happen? Come on, what do you think is going to happen?
Oh, yeah, definitely. I'm going to the streets.
Okay, because you don't have a choice, because the society that was created and perpetuated. See, the thing that people may not want to accept is not just the creation of this thing called the inner city, but it's the intentional perpetuation of this thing called the inner city.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you're going to talk about what welfare is, I'm going to talk about what welfare isn't. I'll take that same money that the government sets aside to keep you without a man, to keep you pregnant.
Keep on talking about
in order to keep you in a rundown facility. I'll take that same amount of money and I'll educate you. So now I'm coming back to this whole concept you talked about. Instead of giving you a piece of fish, I'm now teaching you to fish.
There you go.
So now,
but that's what goes back to what I said, though.
But
right?
But you're talking about the will of the people. I'm talking about the opportunity or lack thereof of the people.
Mm-hmm.
So now I drive down South Orange Avenue and I'm snatching up brothers and sisters off the street. And I'm saying, you know what, instead of you selling me that, I'm going to put you in school. I'm going to
teach you those same business skills you got learning how to be a drug dealer. And I'm going to transfer those over to you becoming an entrepreneur and using those same gifts and talents that you got sitting out here in these streets to go out here.
And so instead of gangbanging on the corner of South Orange and 13th, I'm going to have you own a business on the corner of South Orange and 13th.
Mm-hmm.
And so all those people that you were selling to, that you were gangbanging with, they now become two things: employees and customers.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how you change a community. And I just think that.
So that goes back to purpose, though.
That's what I'm saying.
Right. So when we talk about this purpose, how many of us are doing that? Right now, and when we talk about that, right, getting these young men to understand it, right? How do I go reach that drug dealer or that gangbanger today, and I go reach one of these young brothers and I say, listen, man, what you're doing is you're infecting your community. Let me grab hold of you without being afraid of you. And let me grab you and not start to mentor you. So you're going to come up here and you're going to learn some business skills so I can get you out of that gang so that you can go reach back and get some of your young brothers out of that gang. And so those are the things that we have to look at when we talk about men of purpose.
That's what I'm talking about,
right?
Brother.
We got to fight for our, right? So we said fight for our family, but now we got to fight for our community.
That's what I'm talking about,
right?
brother.
And when we start to fight for our community, then we learn.
We change who we are.
We change who we are.
We change who we are. We change the entire trajectory of Black America. And listen, you know this, I know this. There's always going to be successful Black people. There's always somebody who can sing. There's always somebody who can dunk. There's always somebody who can score 30 a night. There's always going to be a rapper. There's always going to be Black people who are going to be successful. The Black middle class is bigger today than it's ever been. The Black upper middle class today is greater than it's ever been. I'm not going to say society allows that, but society can't stop that. Because if Malik Carey has a will and a desire and has a plan and is working it and is persistent and is committed, he's going to be successful. And so is your woman, and so is your brother, and so is anybody else who has that purpose in life.
Mm-hmm.
So purpose first becomes individual, so that I can get what I need to get, so that I can then be purposeful about my family, so I can then be purposeful about my community. So that's why I just think it's so very, very important to understand our identity first. First purpose has to be to understand our identity so that we can understand that we need to carry this baton. We need to carry this torch. We need to be able to fight for our families, our relationships, fight for our ability and our competency at being fathers, raising sons, raising daughters. It's not just about black men raising their sons, about black men raising their daughters, so that these black women who are out in the street, who don't have options, right? Who don't have alternatives, don't have to sell their bodies or show more than half of their bodies just to be noticed, just to be recognized. And so all this, to me, centers around black men having a significant, powerful, intentional purpose. Because if they function in that manner, it changes who we are as a people.
I like what you said about fighting for fathers. Well, we got 65% of the black fathers are not in the homes.
Mm-hmm.
Not to say they're not present, but they're not in the homes. And so, how do we get? And I'm gonna talk about something. How do we get these young men to stop making babies by women they don't want to be with, having these babies, doing the things, and transferring from baby mamas to wives? How do we get young men to understand and start to value marriage, start to value family over some young chick because she bad, right? Now, I've had a conversation with my own son, and this is the conversation. I think I shared this with you before. I said, you're not going to just be dating to be dating, okay? We're not doing that. I don't care. You're going to have your identity. Your identity is you're a man, so you don't need no woman telling you and validating you because you are a nice-looking dude. I'm telling you as your father, so you ain't going to be whole and complete running around here thinking you're going to get a whole bunch of chicks. I'm not doing that. You're not doing that. What are you dating for? So are you dating to go hang out? Are you dating to make this a girlfriend? Are you making this a wife? What are your purpose? Going back to purpose, I think everything has a purpose. Marriage has a purpose. Why you dating has a purpose. Why am I going to this job has a purpose, right? We talk about when I go to work, I'm going to work to provide for my family, right? I'm dating or I'm married. My marriage has a purpose. Our marriage is to help show other people that they can be married, and we model marriage, right?
Right.
You 30 years of marriage, that's modeling. Me and my wife, we look up to you and your wife, right? You guys got 30 years in. And so when we look at those things, when it goes back even to purpose, how do we teaching our young men that, man, you just can't keep creating babies and not taking care of them?
The way to answer your question, the way you do it is, you got to want to. It goes back to what you got. Again, it goes back to purpose. My purpose is to round up these young men and to sit them down and have some very honest, uncomfortable discussions and conversations around what's wrong and why it's wrong. And then more importantly, okay, we're going to come back next week or tomorrow. We're going to talk about what we're going to do about it. It's all about being intentional. It's all about being purposeful. And that's what it's all about. And so it can be done. And again, I know I'm repeating myself, but we don't do it.
No.
And we don't do it because we're comfortable. And we don't do it because we've arrived. I hate to say it. We don't do it because we've been there, we've done that, we've done our thing. And so now we're tired. And now we're like, you know what? Whew, I've done it. I'm done. That's fine. And there's nothing wrong with that. There really isn't anything wrong with that. We're all entitled to live our lives the way we want to, right? We're all entitled to that. We don't owe anybody anything until we absolutely owe our brothers and sisters the benefit of our experiences and the support that we can give them.
Mm-hmm. I've been blessed, Brett. The Lord spoke to me. I'm a Christian. He spoke to me. I'm clear on my purpose to help deliver others from their brokenness. So every day that I wake up, I know what I'm clear on, right? That's why Family Healing Center exists. That's why when I step outside of these doors, how many brothers aren't that clear though? All right. When you look at, okay, right, I got purpose. I'm to lead, to teach, to help, to prosper all whom I come in contact with. Right. So every day when I get up, I'm leading, I'm teaching, I'm helping, I'm prospering. Right. I got clear and I've been blessed. I've been clear since I was in my 30s on my mission and my vision and what my life was about. How many of us don't have that? And when you don't have it, I think I closed the episode last week. A man without a purpose is just wandering aimlessly. When I think about the 40 years in Israel, right? We got 400 years of oppression, right? We're still wandering aimlessly.
Well, I just want to push back. Some of us.
Some of us.
Yeah.
And not all of us, and we'll be clear on that. But if it's the majority, then we still got work to do.
But I'm talking about the minority.
Mm-hmm.
What you're speaking about is the majority. I'm talking about the minority. The majority, hate to say it, has no purpose.
Right.
It's the minority
that has the purpose.
That has has individual purpose, mm-hmm. and they've accomplished their individual. Most of them, they've accomplished and they are accomplishing, and that's a great thing. That's a wonderful. This is America. You're supposed to be able to decide on who you want to be and what you want to do, and do the things that you need to do in order to be successful. That's what it's all about.
Mm-hmm.
All I'm saying, as a black man, that's great. As a black man, singular.
Mm-hmm.
As black men, plural. That's not good. And black men, right. Plural. Again, I'm gonna go back to this. We have I believe we need to carry the baton. We need to pick up and where our forefathers left off, continue the struggle and fight for equity. And equity doesn't just mean you get to the job you want, you get the house you want, you get the business you want, you get the wife you want, you get the children you want. Equity means
that we're more of us sitting at the boardroom.
Thank you.
Yeah.
But it's not just sitting at the boardroom. Equity means that even outside the boardroom, when you get in your car and you drive home, you're not passing homeless brothers and sisters on the street.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to go to Dunkin' Donuts or Starbucks in the morning and say, "Bro, yo, man, can I get $1?"
Spare change.
Yeah. Equity means opportunity for all of us as a people. And I just think that as black men, this is just me, and I could be dead wrong. And I'm sure 99% of the people who might hear this might say, "Brett, you're out of your mind, you're wrong. What are you talking about?" And for those who feel that way, I respect that.
And I expect them to leave a comment.
Well, here's my point though. Even if you feel that way, I respect that,
mm-hmm.
because that's how you feel.
Mm-hmm.
And that's fine. And
I
listen, I'm not one to criticize anybody for anything. I'm a big believer in you do you, okay?
Mm-hmm.
All I'm saying is, when it comes to this particular topic, as black men, what's our purpose? I think our purpose is to raise each other up.
No,
that's all
totally
I'm saying.
Agree.
And if you don't want to do that, that's your business. I ain't mad at you. I ain't hating you. I'm still loving you. But I'm going to have a greater sense of, I'm going to have more love and a greater sense of respect and admiration, appreciation for the brother standing next to you who has made it, because he realized where he came from. He realizes who he has left behind. And he has said, if not me, then who?
Mm-hmm.
That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, no, Brett, I totally agree. You know, we disagree on a lot of things. That's why we're doing this podcast. You know, one of the things that I do love is your passion and as far as really wanting to see other people be raised up and really as a collective, right? You and I met coaching, right? That's how we met, 12, 13 years ago, raising up young men, making an impact on people's lives. That's how you and I met, right?
Exactly.
And we continue to do it, right? We continue to coach. We continue to get out in these communities and put our, our love on the line,
right?
And yeah, because I make it don't mean I made it,
right?
I'm not gonna, until the day I go 6 feet under, that's when I made it. And until that day, use me up, right?
Yeah.
Fill me up and use me up.
Yeah.
But when I do think about is, and I don't want to seem like we're beating up on the brothers. So I do, and that's something that we got to be clear on also. But we, as a people, as a black man race, as men who have been so systematically oppressed, depressed, we still got hope, right? I believe that there's still hope. I still believe that the best is yet to come, right? We still got these things that we have that we see. I think my cry, my plea is for these brothers and for all of us to get clear on our purpose, because the family is falling apart, and it's falling apart more than ever before. And we got to be real about that.
And it's only going to get worse.
Right. And then when we look at 65% of marriages, right, you got 1 in 3 women running around. I got sisters every day asking me, do I know a good man? The good men I know are all married. I can't help them. And I'm sorry, I'm not introducing them to some of these brothers that I know are single. So I got a bunch of women who are single, who are decent, great women, who can't even find husbands, right? We got to realize that we can't continue to play the games we've been playing.
Right.
I'm talking to a sister one day, beautiful young lady. She's dating some dude for a year and never been to the dude's house. I'm like, come on, girl, you know better, right? Games. And these are women. These aren't children. A brother's in his 60s is not invited to your house yet. Come on, what you doing?
Right.
And we're seeing it. Men don't know how to, why are we getting married today? And brothers don't want to get married.
Well, it's not wanting to make the commitment on the one hand, but I think it's more than not wanting to be committed. It's not wanting to take on the responsibilities of what that looks like. And then the other thing is not wanting to give up freedom and liberty. See, as black, again, I know this sounds corny, but when you're oppressed and you've been oppressed throughout your whole life and you've seen oppression with the generation before you and oppression with the generation before that, it puts you in a situation of selfishness.
Mm-hmm.
I need to do it's me. I need to do what's in my best interest. I need to do what makes me feel good. And so what makes me feel good is abusing somebody else. You know the old saying, hurt people. And that's where we're at, bro. And so anytime you see a man mistreating a woman, it's because he has been hurt. Anytime you see a woman trying to play a man, she's been hurt. And what's going on now, more than anything else, or as much as anything else, is you have a whole generation of black men and women who don't want to have nothing to do with each other. Nothing to do with each other because of the hurt that they have experienced with their parents and with their grandparents. So the sister's like, either I don't want to deal with a brother or I can't find one. The brother's like, I don't want to deal with no sister because it's easier for me to deal with somebody else.
Mm-hmm.
So, and that leads to a whole nother subject, dating and all that kind of stuff we don't even want to get into right now, but I know we got to close it out. But the biggest challenge to me, as again, this topic is a real simple topic. As black men, what is our purpose? And so we all have individual goals
Mm-hmm.
that we all individually aspire and pursue. Great. Absolutely great. And I'm never going to knock anybody for what they do. I'm never going to criticize anybody for who they are, for how they are, for what they do, because everybody has a right to be who they are, do what they want to do, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm not saying about throwing no shade on nobody.
Mm-hmm.
All I'm saying is that if we ever want to evolve, if we ever want to grow, if we ever want to become a wholer people, a better people,
Mm-hmm.
those who have arrived, so to speak, those who have been there, done that, those who are in positions of influence and power, those who can mentor, those who can role model, those who can walk with, those who need somebody to walk with. That needs to be our purpose.
That's real good. So you're talking about purpose. At the end of the day, you're telling me that we need to impact system structures. We need to fight for equality, and we need to fight for our families
And our communities.
and our communities
And our relationships.
and our relationships.
We need to fight for our relationships with our significant others. We need to fight for our relationships with our children who are who I'm not saying you and me, but who are losing to social media, losing to technology, losing to drugs, losing to hopelessness. I mean, not to beat a dead horse here, but you got a lot of people back who have graduated from college who have $100,000 worth of student debt and they're working minimum wage or on welfare. As sad as that is, man, that's a
reality.
That's a fact.
That's
a
fact,
and it's a reality. Right. And again,
right. And so when I close this out, we're going to close this out in a few minutes. But one of the things that I want to go back to is when we talk about the reason for something, the reason in which something was created. So as Black men, we've been created, right? God created us. He didn't make us brown. We were created. We were put here for this time and place. This generation, with all our education, with all of our power, some power, how do we get out and fight to no end this generation? I'm going to challenge some men who are listening to this to really start to say, in 2023, I want to make an impact.
The answer is very simple. They got to want to. They have to want to, because we all have rights. And at the end of the day, if those of us who have arrived aren't putting on our capes trying to save those who haven't, then you're always going to have that separation of class. Oh, and by the way, not to get into this because it's time to go, that's what institutional and systemic racism is all about, bro. Mm-hmm.
I'm challenging men 2023. We're going to start talking about impact. It's one of the things we talked about on the prayer call this morning, impact. Getting out, our purpose is to make an impact in 2023. Our purpose is to say, you know what? I'm not going to stand for it anymore. We can't continue to stand for it. This is something that's been going on for year after year after year. We've been having these discussions for year after year. Martin and Malcolm had it. Now Brett and Malik are having it, right?
You're Malcolm, I'm Martin. How about that? We shall overcome.
We shall overcome. We have to overcome. And I'm going to challenge some brothers that, you know what? If you need help, go get help. Your girls are telling you, your wives are telling you, go get help. We can't do this alone.
But you know what the other thing is too? Everybody has an inner circle. Everybody has friends. Everybody has family. Sit around just sit around the house. Sit around your man cave. And instead of, turn the second half off or don't watch the first half and just have a real conversation about what can I do to change. And it starts internally, and it starts internally. What can I do to change just my immediate family? What can I do to change my extended family? So you start there.
But you got to want to listen to your partner too.
Sure.
My wife sees my backside. I don't see my backside. My friends see my backside. So if everybody's telling me something, I may want to listen. I may want to listen to hear, hey man, you're being selfish or something's going on. People, that's what friendships are about.
True.
That's what relationships are about. True. You know what? I was perfect when I was single. I was really perfect. Till that missus came along and started telling me how imperfect I was. And not in a hard way, but in a loving way.
Right.
She was saying, hey, babe, there's some things going on.
Right.
That you need to go check out.
Right. And sometimes these conversations that we're having isn't about pointing out each other's weaknesses. It's more about just lifting each other up.
It's about that 360, right? That focus 360. It's about the whole person, and it's about understanding feedback. And I don't believe in positive or negative criticism. It's not about criticism. It's about saying, see my blind spots. Help me with my blind spots. I need to know. And that's what a man is about. Okay? About talk to me about my blind spots so that I can know, so that I don't take it into public. I don't take it into leadership. I don't take it into these things. My staff, give me feedback. One of the things that I do here at my center is I get it. Everyone gets a chance to evaluate me.
It's a great idea.
I said everyone that you can do it. You can put it in Times New Roman. You can do it anonymously if you have courage. You can walk in my office and don't tell me I'm the best freaking person on the planet. I don't want to hear that.
You mean to tell me somebody actually told you that?
Don't tell me that. I don't want to hear that. I want to hear feedback. Brett, I need to hear my brother's feedback. Hey, we spend time together. Tell me what you need, right? And that's how we became close, right?
Right.
And so those are the things as men we have to be able to start to do so that we can understand and get on purpose. Hey, man, you see something in a brother. You know what, man? I see something in you. Man, you don't understand your purpose. But, yo, man, I see, you know what? You're the type of brother that everybody can come to and you make everybody laugh. You are the type of brother, man, maybe you do things with systems, and I see you really good with systems.
Yeah, it's all about encouraging each other, lifting each other up, because I don't know exactly how the saying goes, but we're stronger. We're stronger together in a sense. You know, I can do me, but you and me are better than just me, and the three of us are better than two of us. And so you get 4 or 5. The 3 or 4, the 4 or 5 people that you're closest to, sit down with them, and it's not about pointing out weaknesses in each other. It's just about saying, together, what can we do?
You're right.
Together, what can the 3 of us, what can the 4 of us, what can the 5 of us do? How can the 5 of us help you? How can the 5 of us help you? How can the 5 of us help you? What can the 5 of us do in our community? What can the 5 of us do in our church? What can the 5 of us do on our respective? How can we help each other on our respective jobs?
Mm-hmm.
Can we have more impact on our jobs? Can we get promoted? Can we bring other people in? All I'm saying is sit down and have these tough conversations with the people that you are closest to, and you'll be amazed. You'll be amazed at what we black men can do when we come together.
Power.
When we come together for a purpose. When we come together for a purpose. Be amazed at what we can do as black folks. All right, bro.
All right, man. Yo, Brett, this has been a great episode.
Appreciate the conversation.
Just appreciate the conversation. To many more. You know, remember, a man without purpose is a man who wanders aimlessly.
Right. You guys can check us out on Men2Men podcast.
And that's Men, MEN 2, the number 2 Men podcast. We can be reached on Facebook. We can be reached on Instagram, and we can be reached on YouTube. So, Brett, thank you again. And ladies and gentlemen, have a great day.
Peace out.